So Sarah and I have been working on the social emotional learning curriculum and doing a lot of research on all of this. And as the pandemic was hitting and as things were closing, we quickly realized that we needed a resource like now, not a resource that is going to be published in a year or 2 years or 3 years, since I tend to be an optimistic person. But families need something right now. And I know that all of you and all of the children that are a part of your life need something basic. You need something quick. You need something real. And so we put together this packet, hoping that it would meet you where you're at and that you could adapt it and have it really help your family get regulated and ready. So we're going to go through these basic beginning activities and talk through how you guys would use them with your family members. One really important thing, well, two really important things before we jump into these. The first thing is the point of all of this. Why do we care? We obviously do not care about regulated and ready to be like to have a student that gets straight A's. Like that's not the goal right now. I think we can all acknowledge that. We're not trying to get regulated and ready for like the biggest concert performance of our life, or even for like a really special first date at this point. The purpose of regulated and ready at this point is connection. It is safety. It is to get to a place where relationships can grow closer instead of pulling apart. So as we're thinking through these activities, it's important, number two, to think about this not just being for your one child that has the IEP or for your one family member that is kind of been identified as the one that needs the most help right now. I'd strongly recommend that as you're doing these activities, you do them with all the people in your household. And even if your child is logging in and getting to do some virtual telehealth therapy right now, and you're doing some of these, I'd encourage you to ask your therapist for the packet so that the other family members can be brought into the loop and be a part of this as well. So basic things to be thinking about. These activities are for everyone in the family. And what am I talking about? So I'm going to talk through each of these activities like I'm coaching a therapist through how to do these, or I'm coaching you as a family member as kind of the leader of the activity, and so that you would know what you're going to say as you sit down at a table with your family members. Again, we try to make this as straightforward and easy as possible so you can just hit print, gather up a couple basic tools, and get going. This first one, the place that we start, is self-awareness. In order to get regulated and ready, you first need to realize if you're not regulated and ready, right? So if you as a person get that flooding that happens when you're triggered and you don't even know which way is up and you're actually lashing out at people before you even recognized that you were triggered, the first place to start is getting that awareness, that basic level of, I'm not, I like to call it fit for human consumption. I'm not ready to be engaging with other people right now. And that gift comes with self-awareness. So you can do these activities right now and create the model for the students that you're working with or your own children in your household. You can go ahead and grab a brown marker or crayon. I have my very favorite markers. These are my Centos Sugar Rush markers. So I'm going to grab this brown right now, and I'm going to go ahead and color the stuck in the mud section brown. And we try to make this language as accessible for all ability levels and also not demeaning for our older students, right? So sometimes the trickiness with an activity like this is it feels a bit babyish to our 10, 11, 15-year-olds. But everyone can understand, whether they're the 16-year-old that's about to get their license, that they don't want to get stuck in the mud. And us adults very much can understand a stuck in the mud feeling. But similarly, the 4-year-old can understand stuck in the mud. So go ahead and take your brown marker and color that section brown. You can do it however you want, whatever makes you feel happy, patterned if you want to, whatever you want to do there. Then you're going to color the on track section green. Now, I like having a big middle section of this dial as on track because there's a lot of different things that we could be feeling or doing and still be on track, right? Like I can feel excited, I can feel a little frustrated, and I can still be in that zone of regulated and ready. It's when I have the bigger extremes, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I am just beyond sad, I am depressed, or I am just livid, right? On those extreme ends of emotions is where we're not regulated and ready. So go ahead and grab your green marker and color that middle section on track green. And while you guys are coloring this around the dinner table or the coffee table in the living room or wherever you're going to be, it's okay to talk about situations where you felt on track or not so much and where you would be, right? And then the last section is off the road. So go ahead and grab your yellow and you're going to color this off the road section yellow. These are the more extremes of emotion that are going to make it hard to be regulated and ready to learn, regulated and ready to connect, to play, to even to eat, right? How many of you have been at the dinner table where you've got your like 3-year-old that gets like just angry because you won't give him the 5 millionth blueberry, and then all of a sudden all the food goes flying across the room, right? So that child is off the road at that point. And then you might be right after that too, depending on how big of a mess that made. Okay, so you've got your 3 dial sections colored, and then you're going to cut out that dial. So your other material thing that you're going to need to gather up for this family fun time is a couple pairs of scissors. You're also going to cut out the arrow down below. The reason you're cutting those out is we're going to make this an interactive dial. So we want that arrow to be able to move. And I love brads, those little metal things with the circle on top and the 2 little lines. But I recognize that those aren't something that everyone has just hanging out around the house, and they're actually a little on the hard side to find. So if you have a brad, but also if you have a paper clip, you can put that arrow on. So before you sit down to do this activity as a family, you're going to gather markers, scissors, and some paper clips or brads, and then you're all ready to go. It does feel a little bit clunky, and it can make some people feel not so regulated and ready if all the materials are not available and there's that start and stop. You might lose someone in the process. So that's one thing you can do. Gather everything up ahead of time, have your example already made, and then make the dial with the family members that you're going to do this activity with. It doesn't feel so good to have someone tell you what to do. It feels a lot better for someone to do the activity with you. So even though you have that extra, make the extra dial as an example now, so that if by chance when someone is off the road and they rip the dial up, no problem. I've got an extra one here for you whenever you're ready, right? So it's not going to go to waste here. So that's the first activity. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about how someone could adapt this activity for our younger and older friends, or our friends that just aren't ready?
Yeah, most definitely. So the key, Robin, as you had mentioned, is that connection with your child or whoever you're participating with. So some children just aren't quite ready to understand, like, this is how I'm personally feeling. However, the way to grade this down to maybe make this a little bit more understandable to our younger friends would be like, just describe in general, what would someone look like? Or even literally talk about a car first. What does a car look like when they're stuck in the mud? And maybe then relate that to like a general term, rather than like, how do you personally feel? But more have that open conversation about like, what does someone look like? Or what do you think they would feel in this circumstance? So kind of, rather than feeling that pressure on that child of like trying to gain that understanding in themselves, rather more just have it an open dialogue just about like, what would this look like in general? And then the other way, let's grade this up. So how about our teenagers and our older friends that, you know, are getting this concept and ready to take it to the next step? Something that I think would be really intriguing would to be have them create their own dial. So they worked with this dial, they've practiced it. Now let's take out a piece of paper and let's make our own, right? So you have your own descriptors and you write down your own descriptors of what stuck in the mud looks like. What does on track look like with your body and how you feel, and the same with that last one. So the most important thing in general for tips for mom and dad is to really remember that you are the model for these kids. So really giving them that example of what it feels like for you, and stepping back when you're not directly working on this activity and acknowledging, wow, like I really feel stuck in the mud right now, and this is why. And giving those examples to your children gives them that opportunity to be like, oh, I see. They're connecting this feeling with this circumstance, to allow them to really generate that into their daily life, in addition to having this wonderful activity alone.
So true. I love that. I love that reminder. And the modeling can happen for a child no matter what their ability level is. I'm especially thinking of our friends that if you tell them to do anything, they will say no. So for that, if that child lives in your house or that person lives in your house, then I would say start with the modeling side of this. It might be like I had a moment the other day where my wonderful, amazing children were biting each other. And you guys, we have practiced we don't bite for years, and they know this, right? But life is crazy right now. And what I could have done in that moment is hold up my dial and move the arrow over to off the road and walked away and walked up and down my hill, right? A couple of times. So I'm modeling like, look, I don't have the words right now, even for you, just like I know, wonderful child of mine, that you sometimes don't have the words. And so you do things like bite. But unlike the biting that has just happened, I'm going to use my dial, I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to actually model. I'm not going to talk with words right now, model what I do for my body. And that is so powerful. So powerful. That is so good.